This channel is only possible thanks to direct contributions from you, the viewers. Seriously, thank you guys. If you'd like to contribute, you can do so for as little as $1 a month on Patreon, or come pick up a t-shirt at the merch store. Links below. Hey pals, welcome to part 2 of our exploration into revolutionary girl Utena's influences on Steven Universe. In part 1 of this series, we explored how Steven Universe borrows Utena's symbolic, visual language to convey the idea that many of the audience's windows into the events of the past, and even the ruling myths of the entire show, didn't accurately represent reality. In this episode, we'll be talking about Pearl, and her parallels to revolutionary girl Utena's deuteragonist, Anthy Himemiya. But before we do, I want to give a quick content warning for revolutionary girl Utena. Steven Universe can get pretty dark for a kids show, but Utena is very much not a kids show, and it faces themes of misogyny, sexual, and romantic abuse square on. And while I do think it handles these subjects with empathy and compassion, it's not necessarily an easy watch, and it can be a potentially traumatizing one. Which is also true of some of the imagery in this video. So for this and all future content involving revolutionary girl Utena, please mind the content warnings before you engage. Now, it may seem odd to equate Pearl with Anthy at first blush. After all, Pearl takes home the lion's share of direct references to Utena Tenjo herself, including direct visual parallels in their sword fighting. And both Pearl and Utena are characters fixated upon pursuing an ideal that embodies some notions of chivalry, fighting for justice, and protecting the weak. Pearl isn't quite a prince though. Unlike Utena, Pearl has decided to build her identity around a different archetype, the knight. And traditionally, the prince and the knight have somewhat different roles to play. But we'll come back to that. As the alluring and coveted Rose Bride, Anthy's part to play is simple. She is the prize. The champion duelist becomes engaged to Anthy, and she must forever obey the engaged's wishes. Nobody participating in the dueling game seems to have a very good reason for why Anthy is treated this way or how things got to this situation to begin with, and many characters recognize that treating a human being this way is inherently immoral, and even try to tear down the system as best they can. But in the end, everyone ends up participating, and the rules of the dueling game go on and on. Through it all, so thorough is Anthy's devotion to this task that many around her come to conclude that she has no soul, will, or emotions of her own. Anthy stands by, looking pretty, and watches. She tends to the engaged's wishes, whatever they may be, and of course, she holds the engaged sword, the sword of Dios, the prince, within herself. Sound familiar? Beat for beat, these are the functions given to the pearls in Homeworld system. Anthy's absolute obedience to the engaged, and to the architect of the duels, and of the world, echoes Pearl's inability to disobey a command from their diamonds. Of course, every gem in Homeworld would find it unimaginable to deny a diamond's order, but in the case of pearls, this seems to be outright physiologically built into them. Obedience is the function for which they're purpose-built. They may be given to a gem as a mark of innate importance or as a reward for outstanding service. In Homeworld, earning the favor of the power structure of the diamonds might be rewarded with absolute power over another living being, meant to be both your admiring subject and dependent plaything. This is the same prize the duelists receive upon winning the Rose Bride. Like the Rose Bride, a pearl's purpose is to provide a warped facsimile of approval and love. However, to the duelists of Otori, the Rose Bride is a means to an end. The champion duelist will ascend with Anthy to the castle hanging from the sky, and there they will gain that which is eternal, that which shines. The power of miracles. The power to revolutionize the world. The power of Dios, the prince. Some kind of apocalyptic god power, anyway. But that's grand to the point of anime meaninglessness, right? What are these kids actually fighting for? What is this power, really? Well, in every case, the duelists want the power to smash the world's shell for a specific purpose, or rather, person. Juri wants the power of miracles so she can confess her romantic love to Shiori. Mickey wants to reclaim his purity, the shining thing he felt playing the piano with his sister. And Saionji fights for eternity, but what he really wants is eternal friendship with Toga, and you can read whatever you like into that. Later into the story, the strength of the duelists become explicitly tied to their relationships with these important people in their lives, who themselves become rose brides. These aren't all girls, but the role of the bride is still explicitly gendered, and connected to the princess of the fairy tale. The bride draws out the strength of the duelist, imitating Anthy empowering Utena with her sword. The duelist, in imitation of the prince, protects this princess bride. The subtext becomes text when we learn that it was Anthy's belief and love for the prince that made him a prince in the first place, and he was originally something lesser. The power to revolutionize the world was always the love of another, a force that could literally change someone's identity and turn them into a hero. This is, to be fair, only directly implied to us in the movie, but the implications of the show bear it out. The roles of both the Rose Bride and Pearls, gems in general really, are means of social control, institutions of coercion and abuse, but both attempt to imitate something, a kind of unconditional approval and love that feels gratifying and empowering to receive, a sort of love that can change everything. The Rose Bride is an imitation of the past, of a love that was real and has now been tarnished. In Steven Universe, it's an imitation of the future. It's a false pretense of love that, in one very special case, becomes something more than that. To be born, though, both of its members need to radically redefine their relationships to their world and each other. Just as Anthy's love transformed her brother, the Lord of the Flies, into a prince, it's Pearl's love that allows Pink Diamond to become Rose Quartz, and allows her to reinvent herself from a bride into a rebel knight. It's Pearl who imagines the lie that sets Pink free. A lot has been made of how early Pink was bratty and childish, but in that very childishness, it's clear that Pink only really seemed to want the Diamond's attention and love. She becomes interested in colonies and expansion only because that's all the Diamond seems to care about, and all she seems to be allowed. Pearl is the first person to give Pink Diamond what she actually wanted, a real emotional connection, a willingness to help her achieve her own desires coupled with the ability to do so. In return, Pearl was able to reinvent herself as a knight who would serve not out of compulsion, but genuine devotion, not as a passive object, but as a powerful warrior. Together, they rewrote their roles within Homeworld's fairy tale system, but rejecting a system is harder than just reinventing the story you tell yourself and others about you. The idea of the Rose Prince, the ideal hero, the benevolent god that could save every princess and ensure everyone was happy forever, he was a beautiful fantasy, but he was also a lie. And the act of lying to the world by convincing it he existed had consequences for Anthy, no matter how good her intentions might have been. The world grew reliant on its hero, and when the prince burnt himself out trying to save everyone perpetually, and suddenly couldn't save people anymore, the world grew angry, and Anthy chose to face the consequences in his place. When she did, her magic faded, because she could no longer believe her brother was a perfect hero who could never be defeated. He was weak now. She had to protect him. And so, the prince disappeared from the world, and the consequences for Anthy were apocalyptic. Similarly, the lie Pearl and Rose told together eventually grew beyond their control, until it too consumed everything in its apocalyptic weight. In the years that followed, Pearl and Anthy both had to cope not just with their guilt for their role in this dramatic change in the world, but in the continual erosion of the pedestals their princess rested on thereafter. What's more, Pearl struggles to break away from the dynamics that defined her previous role. Don't get me wrong, Pearl's love is transformative, redemptive, and beautiful in many ways, but it's also, like so many relationships trying to find a better way to live while trying to escape an inherently toxic power structure, a bit of a mess. Pearl takes on the role of the knight, but like the princess or bride, the knight exists to serve a liege lord, providing the sword that the prince uses to wage war. One of the pitfalls of the knight is of unthinking loyalty, which is exactly the trap that Pearl falls into with Pink. And so, Pearl finds herself enabling Rose's literal war of self-destruction. When Pink assumes the role of Rose Quartz, she inspires rebellion in the hearts of other gems, and as she gathers the crystal gems around her, she makes a monster not just out of Homeworld, whose actions certainly qualify, but out of herself.
And the thing to know about Rose is that Rose was saying awful things about the diamonds, especially Pink Diamond, 100% of the time.
Yeah.
The story that Rose would tell was about this cowardly, horrible monster.
Yeah, this manipulative, cackling evil.
But I kind of want people to be aware that this is like a character that put herself in a situation where everyone around her was saying, destroy yourself.
This self-destructive mindset was obviously terrible for Rose Quartz, but the lie had unintended effects. By presenting Rose Quartz as an ordinary gem, she paradoxically elevated herself above her peers as the gem who saw a different path, for no explicable reason, when in reality, her perspective was the result of being born into a position of unique power. To the crystal gems, Rose was defined by a mythic ability to know better, to be better than the rest. And so, she fell into the trap of the prince, and fell into a pattern of codependency with Pearl specifically, but also all of her followers. Even after Rose fakes her own shattering, after the corruption's apocalypse hits Earth, and centuries after that when Greg finally confronts her directly.
Can you just talk to me for 1 second like a real person?
Rose still struggles with this aspect of herself. The transformation of heroic protection into codependency ensnares Utena and Anthy too. Like Dios before her, Utena yearns to be a noble prince who saves princesses, and there's no princess more in need of saving than Anthy, being exploited and abused in the games of the Rose Bride. But since she sees Anthy as a simple girl in need of saving, rather than a person struggling with the guilt and trauma partly brought on by her own choices, Utena fails to grasp Anthy's full, complex humanity. Both Rose and Utena trap themselves in a new fairy tale of their own making, with themselves in the role of a prince, saving a princess whose internality they struggle to understand. This is Utena's fatal flaw as the story's tragic hero, that her desire to save Anthy stops her from seeing how Anthy got to this point, or the complicated reasons Anthy might not want to be saved. From the perspective of the prince, and from the perspective of an audience trained to see the prince as unambiguously heroic, someone cut out from the comfortable light of the fairy tale can seem ungrateful, irrational, or even evil. Utena was unable to understand her friend, Anthy Himemiya, the scared and traumatized girl, and so she was unable to understand Anthy, the witch. Let's talk about her next time, along with one of Steven Universe's most controversial characters, Lapis Lazuli. Before we go, I want to give a quick shout out to my dear friend Sam Keeper from Storming the Ivory Tower, who helped me edit the script for this video series into something comprehensible from this video onwards. If you like what I do, I really suggest checking her stuff out because she's actually one of the biggest influences on my way of thinking about media and my style of presentation. She was correctly predicting the Gnostic and metatextual nature of Homestuck's ending and its following hilarious continuation all the way back in 2012, which is pretty impressive considering the comic didn't end until 2016. Let me know in the comments if you check her stuff out, and I hope you look forward to next time. Until then, keep rising. Huge thanks go out to my patrons for making this video possible. If you want to help support the channel and come join us at our awesome and growing Discord community, feel free to join us for as little as $1 a month. You can also find me on the r/Hiveswap Reddit and Discord. That's all for now, so thank you again, and as always, keep rising.